What up, everyone? Welcome back to the Fitness Stuff for Normal People podcast. I'm
And
Tony,
I'm Marianna.
and y'all know what we're trying to do here. The fitness industry, not so great. Us, we're just trying to make it suck a little bit less than it does. We're not here to ride trends or sell you on some scammy crash diets. The goal of this podcast is just to give you the knowledge and tools so you actually have the confidence in applying the best possible training, nutrition, and supplementation into your own life. Where today, one of our most popular episodes to date was our deep dive in vitamin D, with it arguably being the most important vitamin that nearly no one is getting enough of that impacts almost every single aspect of your health. Today, we are going deep on the flip side of that coin, what we consider the most important mineral that nearly no one is getting enough of, and that is magnesium. Because so many people suffering from fatigue, insomnia, insulin resistance, mental health disorders are not considering the absolutely paramount role magnesium plays in all of them. Today, we're breaking down the mineral that takes part in over 300 enzymatic reactions throughout the entire body and the difference it can make if you start getting enough of it through diet or supplementation. But before that, do me a quick favor. If you're listening to us on Spotify, go over to our page real quick and hit the follow button. It is the easiest and freest way you can support us. And every single Monday when we drop a new research-packed episode, you don't miss a thing.
And if you want access to every single one of our complete 12-week training programs that are programmed out in Google Sheets so you can track your workouts to guarantee you are making progress, like our ultimate push-pull leg program, our high-frequency full body program, our 4 to 5 day upper-lower body split, or any of our specialty programs like our glute emphasize split, pull-up add-on, and more to come in the future. You get access to all of these and then some just for being a premium member to the podcast for only $5 a month. And you also get bonus Ask Me Anything episodes every single Friday. The sign up is in the show notes below. And then perfect for today's episode, we have a little shout out to our sponsor, Legion Athletics. They aren't just a sports supplement company. This year, they started carrying high-dose individual vitamins and minerals like we've talked about so many times before, like their vitamin D plus K, their sucrosomial magnesium, which you might want to get your hands on after this episode, their ashwagandha, and more. And by listening to our podcast, you get a nice little 20% off your first order or double points on every order after that with the code FSPOD. We will leave the link in the show notes below.
Whew. I am thoroughly tuckered out today.
Really?
Oh, yeah. I went to the When We Were Young, the little punk rock
Oh, that
festival
was, oh my goodness.
this last weekend. And I'm realizing if I don't get like a good night's sleep on the weekend, okay, not a good night's sleep, not a terrible night's sleep on the weekend, it takes my body like 7 days to recover. I feel like I'm 80 years old sometimes.
That's how I am if I like drink, but especially now since I really rarely drink, but I can run on little sleep. I can.
I was blaming sleep, but you just said that. I'm like, okay, it might have been like the 8 beatbox cocktail juice boxes I drank.
Yeah, with the
throughout
lack
day.
of sleep.
That might be it.
Yeah. Like me
That might-
staying up until like 3:30 this morning because I had to finish a really good book and not getting much sleep. Like that's okay because I had a bunch of sleep the days before. So I'm doing great.
Same, but different. Yeah, you already caught up. You're front loading your week with sleep. I like that. I know I say this a lot, but in putting together the episode, I got really excited again. And you know what we say a lot? We talk about, I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong or add to this, about 5 major supplements that really can make the biggest difference. We talk about creatine. We talk about protein. We talk about vitamin D, the whole episode. We talk about magnesium. Maybe it's just those 4. And maybe like a fish oil, but like those 4 being the biggest ones that can almost immediately impact your progress, your life, things that go along with it. I don't shut up about creatine. That's probably my problem.
I was going
But
to
in
say.
putting this together, I really think, and just going through not getting enough magnesium myself from years ago to prioritizing it in my diet and supplementation, the difference it makes in your day-to-day, I think is bigger than creatine, is bigger than a protein supplement, as much as I love them, especially the vitamin D that we did before and magnesium, the difference it can make from going from below baseline to getting enough, it's a night and day difference. And I would rank them above even like creatine and protein in my book.
I see, and I can totally see that because of the effect, like how easy it is to be like to not get enough of it. And I've been taking magnesium for so long that I can't remember, like vitamin D, I like starkly remember the change like since taking it, but
Yeah.
my levels were so, so, so low. Maybe I just wasn't as low in magnesium. I don't remember that like, but I do notice actually when I go a few months, because I have in the past, like a few months without taking it, and then I take it again, I'm like, oh, I needed that.
Yeah, yeah, okay, I'll go with that too, because I think when I was vitamin D deficient, I went from being, like, ridiculously low, which a lot of people are,
Yeah.
to normal, where I don't know if I was ever ridiculously low in
Yeah.
magnesium. I definitely was not getting enough, but I guess I don't know, I think you're right. I wasn't starting at, like, the same baseline, but still just the difference it makes in your daily energy, your sleep, your recovery, your focus, everything it does, it's that important.
Mhm.
This is, again, someone in my Q&As on Instagram bringing it home. And I'm kicking myself in the butt for not remembering your name, bro. And I apologize for that. He's like, why don't y'all do a deep dive on magnesium? You just did one on vitamin D. Why don't you do it on magnesium? You guys talk about it all the time. Thank you. We should have. That's on
You
us.
guys have great ideas sometimes and you don't even realize it, especially in our Ask Me Anything episodes. There's a spot where you can ask for us to do episodes. But even if you ever have an idea for us to talk about a topic, just drop it there because sometimes they're really good.
They're really good. And it's like right under our nose. We don't shut up about magnesium. This isn't something
Yeah.
we've never talked about
Yeah.
before. We talk about it in most episodes. I feel like somewhere it fits in. And I'm like, it doesn't make sense. Sometimes we're a little, I don't want to call us dumb. I'm not going to speak bad at us.
I'm sometimes dumb. I have
We just,
very
we
dumb
just look
moments.
over things. We look over things. So let's talk about minerals. And at the end of the day, we'll make a final decision. Does Tony like vitamin D or magnesium more? And I'll ask you the same. Because right now, vitamin D is, but we'll see after we get through this one. Now, magnesium. We're going to define and start with what exactly it is, because I know everybody here has probably heard of it, but we're big on that communication aspect. We need to know exactly what we're talking about. So when I say magnesium, you guys know what we're talking about. Magnesium is a mineral and an electrolyte. Not every mineral is an electrolyte, but this is a mineral and electrolyte. What makes a mineral an electrolyte is just when it breaks down and dissolves into water, that it breaks down into ions. And those ions can conduct electricity. And that's what's considered an electrolyte. And all 7 main electrolytes are important, actually essential for survival. And magnesium, I think we're going to learn today, might rank at the top of that list for a few reasons. Because while other electrolytes like sodium, like chloride, they all play super important roles in one or several key systems in our body, magnesium acts as a cofactor for over 300 enzymatic reactions that are crucial for survival. Protein synthesis, muscle contractions, nerve function, energy production, even the creation and repair of DNA and RNA, magnesium has a big hand in. That means magnesium impacts your metabolic health, how your nervous system functions, how hormones are produced and regulated in your body. Just about any regulatory mechanism you can think of, magnesium is there. And if you're not getting enough of that, can bleed into almost every part of your life. Estimations range up to about 61% of Americans being either deficient or having subclinical deficiencies in this one electrolyte. So that would be most people. And these quote unquote subclinical deficiencies, they're serious too.
Mhm.
This is where you're noticing a lot of the symptoms that we're going to go over. And this is one that caught me off because I'm like, well, in the vitamin D episode, we told people the easiest way to do that is to get a blood test, right? That's the easiest way to test if you're getting enough vitamin D. But the thing that you run into a problem here is that testing for magnesium is not quite the same, because yes, you can add serum magnesium onto your blood test, but unlike vitamin D, only about 1% of the body's magnesium is in our blood.
Mhm.
1%. So just getting a serum magnesium blood test oftentimes misses most milder forms of deficiencies. And that's the problem. Because I'm even thinking back to my blood testing, I don't think I've ever seen magnesium pop up, or I've never even thought to ask about it. Have you?
No. No, it just
Yeah.
wouldn't make
And I
sense.
think that's why.
Yeah.
So you could get a serum blood test, but that might not tell you much. You could get a red blood cell magnesium test, just testing the magnesium specifically stored in your red blood cells. But that's going to require some doctor's orders, some cost more, some insurance. It's going to be tough. So I don't really recommend that. You could do what's called a magnesium loading test, which might be the most accurate look, but is a complete pain in your. But that's where you get magnesium given intravenously, and then you test how much is excreted through urine, so you see how much your body's holding on to. Or the easiest way, but maybe the least accurate, what we're going to talk about today, is just symptom monitoring,
Mhm.
where you look at common symptoms and then add them to the whole picture to see if you need more.
And also just like diet, like taking 2 weeks or so to just like track your diet and making sure you have an app that gets magnesium in there and you can kind of see how much you're getting on a day to day too.
Because I didn't see that as a problem coming into this. I'm like, well, what crap? Vitamin D, you just test it, but there's not really like a
So ready for that because that is the statistic about how many people are insufficient or deficient is going to be based off of self like self-report and dietary assessment surveys, all things like that. For the most part, you will have those clinical people, but the majority of people, this is going to be underestimated. So it's probably a lot more than what is accounted for because it is hard to test for and less often tested for in just a routine clinical setting.
for real. I didn't even think about that until you just brought it up, but that's so true.
Mhm.
It's like if the most accurate way we have of testing that we're running all of these estimations off of is very inaccurate,
Yeah.
what are we doing? That's a little scary because we're going to talk about how challenging it is to get in your diet alone and why so many people aren't getting enough of because it's hard.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about that in a little bit, but let's talk about some of these symptoms of not getting enough because I feel like they are big in the sense that they're on that cusp of something that's big, that's going to bog you down, that you're going to notice, and it's going to bother you day in and day out, but not big enough where you are in a position to say, I need to go to a hospital right now.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? I don't know if there's like a word for that.
They're generalized symptoms that it's like, I don't know. It's easy to rule them off as just not being.
Yeah. Like they suck, but it's easy to be like, it's probably nothing. I'll just worry about that later.
Yeah, this is why I am such an advocate for, even though it sounds so cliche, but I will forever and always be an advocate for trusting and listening to your body because especially if you have something that's nagging on you that's like, I feel really lethargic. Oh, that's normal. Like I work a lot. I'm very busy. Like if you are constantly thinking that, your body is telling you something. It's not just something
Yeah.
to, especially if it gets in your head every single day. There's, even if it's nothing, trust your body is, our bodies are so smart. And we are, I feel like we are in, at least in the corporate America world, meant to just ignore and like operate like robots and don't want things to get in the way and don't want to have these inconveniences and just like sweep a lot of
Yeah.
things under the rug.
Yeah, symptoms are the language your body
Mhm.
speaks. That's why we talk about in previous episodes when you're going from tracking or not for progress, even just if you're trying to lose weight, pack on some muscles, some strength, whatever it is, listening to biofeedback signals, how well you're sleeping, how well you're recovering, your fatigue through the day, all of these things you should be paying attention to. Like it's your body trying to yell at you, like,
Mhm.
yo, we need help over here. We need help over there. We're good over here. You just got to learn to listen to it. Now, the most common symptoms of not getting enough magnesium, there's going to be a few big ones and some that might surprise you, I think. The first big one is fatigue. Now, there's a reason why one of the first things someone does when they suffer from diagnosed chronic fatigue syndrome is start taking a magnesium supplement. Without enough magnesium, your muscle cells just won't have something called very high oxidative capacity or just the ability to produce ATP, since magnesium plays a very key role in ATP synthesis. And what that ends up leading to is extreme fatigue through the day. And that doesn't mean you're falling asleep every 20 minutes, but how many people have you heard of complain about fatigue on a constant basis? It's something that I think a lot of Americans suffer from.
Yes, absolutely.
A lot of next big one, and this one's going to bog people, is insomnia or trouble sleeping. And I think people get this very confused. And I'll explain why in a second, because people really confuse this whole magnesium supplementation for sleep. Magnesium is known to play a very important role in sleep, where research has shown that even a slight deficiency can lead to a lack of sleep. And this is mostly misunderstood because every time I'll post my breakfast on Instagram. And with that, I'll take my supplements, my vitamin D, my magnesium, my creatine gummies, whatever else. And it's for breakfast. And I say that on there. And I get about 50 freaking DMs every time of people being confused. Like, wait a second, I thought you're supposed to take magnesium before bed. I thought it was a bedtime supplement. It's for sleep. You take it before bed, but that's just not how it works. It's almost in the sense like creatine takes several weeks to actually load and get full effect, right? You don't get immediate effects from creatine. You take it right now before you go to the gym, you're not going to notice a difference.
Mhm.
You have to consistently take it for 3 to 4 weeks to saturate your muscle tissue. And the same thing similar happens with magnesium, right? It's not like, I mean, this is most supplements. They don't immediately
Yeah,
fix a problem. that people want it to. Like, so magnesium, mechanistically, low levels end up leading to neuron excitation. Okay, or where neurons in your brain are activating during periods where they're not intentionally activated. And that subsequently is going to impair sleep a lot of the times. When you're up and your mind's just racing, it could be that abnormal excitation. So having low magnesium levels in general is going to impair sleep. And that's why it takes about 1 to 3 weeks of consistently getting enough magnesium, whether through supplementation, through diet, whatever, to start raising magnesium levels in the body. So this also depends obviously on the dosage you take, the form of magnesium, how low you were to start with, a million different things, but it takes several weeks for your body to start operating how it should. It's not immediate. And I think that's the biggest, let's say tech. That's the biggest misunderstanding, I think, when people think of magnesium as a sleep supplement. I'm not alone here, right? You see that all the time.
Oh my God, for sure. My mom, because I recently got my mom onto magnesium, if you're listening to this, mom. And she was very, very confused because she thought it was only for sleep. And so she didn't understand. She's like, my sleep is fine. I'm like, ah. No, that's a very common thought. And then I also think it's the sleep piece. And then what's like a really other common thing that people just associate magnesium with? Oh, muscle. I feel like,
Calming down, muscle
yeah.
relaxation, yeah.
Hmm.
It's not an immediate thing. It's not an immediate thing. And that's why you got to be patient. You got to be consistent. You got to be daily with it. Okay. So you can take magnesium at any time of day. It's the consistency piece of getting enough that ends up impacting sleep. That's why a lot of people will try magnesium for 2 nights and be like, oh, it didn't help my sleep. I still didn't sleep well. It's like, well, duh.
Yeah.
Okay. Be patient, little guy. Muscle. We know magnesium plays a big role in a lot of the things muscles do. But a big symptom of not getting enough is going to be muscle and bone pain and even cramping. And that's because magnesium stimulates enzymes that actually help normalize your body's level of calcium, potassium, other vitamins and minerals that we're going to talk about. So not getting enough leads to muscle cramps, spasm, weaknesses, joint and bone pain because of how much this regulates all these other processes in the body. Now, here's one that we talked about in a previous episode, but we just touched on. Not getting enough magnesium can show drastically lower testosterone and anabolic hormones throughout your body. And I know that's more important for men, but this also impacts women, especially with PCOS. Now, magnesium is an essential mineral that plays a pretty massive role in the production of anabolic hormones like testosterone and IGF-1. And over again in research, deficiency in magnesium is clearly associated with a decline in those anabolic hormones, and how higher serum magnesium levels are positively correlated with higher testosterone levels, especially as men go on and just age through their lifetimes. Okay. Where research has even shown that magnesium supplementation, and this is not in people who are clinically deficient in testosterone and magnesium, but just purely adding magnesium supplementation can actually increase testosterone levels in both sedentary men and athletes who, again, weren't struggling with low T, who weren't struggling with low magnesium to begin with. It still increased testosterone levels in both sedentary and athletic men. And for women, lower serum magnesium levels have over and over again been associated with higher testosterone levels and aggravated insulin resistance in women with PCOS, which we just talked about in a microdose episode.
Yeah.
Next up is one that's more challenging to notice symptom wise, unless you're tracking different metrics of your health. But high blood pressure and insulin resistance is another very common symptom with low magnesium levels. Magnesium helps relax your blood vessels, which in turn helps lower blood pressure. When magnesium levels are low, blood vessels tend to constrict, and that's going to increase resistance to blood flow, leading to higher blood pressure. High blood pressure also, just if anyone forgot, is one of the strongest risk factors correlated to heart disease. Anybody forgets about that. Number one killer in the entire world. High blood pressure is usually the strongest risk factor. And an interesting little stat, people with higher magnesium levels have a 30 to 40% lower risk of developing heart disease throughout their lifetime. Little interesting tidbit. And why not getting enough also increases insulin resistance, which I know it's more challenging to look for symptom wise unless you're getting like annual blood drawn, looking at things like your HbA1c, fasted glucose, or insulin. But without adequate magnesium levels, the body just has trouble processing glucose. And in turn, that's going to hurt and increase insulin resistance. This one I think people are starting to catch on for is the mental health issue and
Yes.
even impact it has on depression. I know that's been talked about, at least on my side of the internet, more over the last year or so. Are you seeing that too?
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's just like this there is a much bigger focus on the diet and mental health now, and we're getting more and more research on it, which is a good thing. So magnesium's a big hitter.
And it makes a lot of sense. I mean, one of the countless hats it wears is it plays that big role in the central nervous system. And more recent research is showing pretty close ties between magnesium deficiency with depression, anxiety, irritability, mood swings. And it started out, study after study, showing tight correlation with magnesium levels and these depressive symptoms. Then it was shown later that when you take individuals who were deficient in magnesium who also had diagnosed clinical depression, when you added daily magnesium supplementation, that nearly all symptoms of depression significantly started to improve. Where in one study with clinically depressed patients that tested magnesium groups against placebo groups for 8 weeks, showed that the magnesium group saw a 50% greater reduction in what they use to monitor how depressed someone is. The Beck depression test we talked about probably eons ago. It also plays a critical role in reducing the production of cortisol. We know that has a little to do with anxiety, with stress in the body. I think we're going to continue to learn about this more and more in the future, but the mental health, I think, is going to be one of the bigger players that you're going to notice a difference in not getting enough to getting enough
Mhm.
over the coming years.
Yeah. And I think also just which we're going to talk about in a second, but how insufficient magnesium affects vitamin D levels. Vitamin D has a big impact on mental
Double
health
whammy.
as well. So I feel like that double whammy here.
If you can't synthesize vitamin D in your body because you don't have enough magnesium, it's just going to keep getting worse and worse and worse. It's a downward
Yeah.
spiral. How do we stop it? We'll tell you. Other smaller symptoms, they range from tingling or numbness in your limbs, headaches, and migraines, where some studies actually show that regular magnesium supplementation can lower migraine occurrences by 40 to 60%. I personally have never had a migraine.
Oof.
I'm very thankful for that. Never had it
Oh,
because people who describe
I'm so jealous.
it's brutal.
I'm so jealous.
Do you get
I used to have I guess I still kinda have it, but, chronic migraine syndrome. So, it was something I grew out of a little bit, and now I probably only get, like, 2 migraines a year, but I would go for a month straight with a migraine every single day that I would have to be hospitalized. I had to go to the hospital all the time in high school because my migraines made me throw up so much that I needed to get fluids.
oh my God.
Mhm.
That's what I've like from the stories I've heard for people who really suffer from
It's
migraines, it sounds
it's the
brutal.
wor it's, like, one of the worst thing, and you also can't do anything, like, lifting your head, like, I would move my head and throw up. Like, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Like, just
Mhm.
debilitating. Oh, that's
Mhm.
brutal. But again, might be a little toe in here.
Yeah.
There's things like irregular heartbeat. There's a lot of other things going on, but those are gonna be the main symptoms that you would notice. So if you're listening to these and everything we're going over, you're like, "Wait a second. I do feel pretty fatigued most days of the week. I do get muscle cramps or spasm or weakness in the gym time to time. I feel like my endurance when it comes to muscular issues is
Mhm.
there. I have a hard time sleeping most nights of the week." If you're checking all these boxes off, we should start to look at how much magnesium you're getting. And we're not saying this causes that, right? It's definitely not a causation thing here. Like nothing is black and white in this industry. But this is where you want to start lining up symptoms. And if there's one after another, it's definitely worth looking into if you're getting enough of. And that's really the hard part because it's up. I mean, other than I think potassium, it might be one of the harder vitamins and minerals to get enough of in your diet
Yeah.
alone,
Oh, it
opinion.
definitely is. We'll talk about that after this piece because this trails into what we were just talking about a little bit because there's this ripple effect with not getting enough magnesium into how it can affect levels of other vitamins and minerals and hormones in the body. And this makes sense if we go back to what Tony said, how it's a cofactor for over, what was it, 300 different reactions in the body or something like that.
300.
Yeah, it plays a role in so many metabolic processes that other levels of vitamins and hormones are also going to be affected because of this. So just to briefly run through that so you can kind of get an idea of how this isn't just low magnesium. If you have low magnesium, you other things are going to be affected. One of the biggest ones is going to be vitamin D. So if you are deficient in magnesium, you cannot convert vitamin D into its active form within the body. Vitamin D cannot be metabolized without sufficient magnesium levels. So now your vitamin D levels are at risk because of the role that magnesium plays in the metabolism of vitamin D. So now
that shocked me like so much when we went on that vitamin D episode, because you could supplement with as much vitamin D as you possibly want.
Mhm.
It's not going to impact your blood vitamin D levels if you're deficient in magnesium. That's like what it's a little terrifying to think about. If this one piece is missing, how many countless things it's impacting down the road. Like, that's just one of them.
Yeah. Because you need magnesium is required to convert vitamin T into its active form. Without it, you can't do that. So that is huge. And then you have the ripple effect of, well, vitamin D regulates calcium absorption. If you have insufficient vitamin D levels now, you are going to have insufficient calcium levels. And the same thing over time, calcium concentration will start to decrease despite adequate intake of calcium. And calcium is easy to get in the diet. So it doesn't matter how much you have because you don't have enough vitamin D because you don't have enough magnesium. That ripple effect right there is like, that blows my mind.
It's nuts because it's like a lot of things I feel like when it comes to people's health is they might be trying to treat something that is such a downstream ripple,
Yeah.
like the calcium part of the discussion.
Mhm.
And no matter what they do, they try and increase their calcium. They try and supplement with it. It's not working. It's not fixing those problems. And it's not realizing it's not even just like the first or second, but like the third ripple from not getting enough magnesium. Like this is that key player. We talk about key principles in weight loss, in strength training, like for weight loss, the calorie deficit being a key principle. You got to get that. For building muscle and getting stronger, progressive overload, like those first order keys that you need to take care of.
Mhm.
This is going to be one
Yeah.
of them.
Yeah, it's wild. It's crazy. And how many doctors don't talk about this? It makes me who don't consider this. And it's because, you know what? We can't blame doctors because they don't get this level of nutrition education. Like, if they even get a class, it's just like the basics. So, but it's just it's so important. So that's the biggest one. And then magnesium deficiency can also impair parathyroid hormone secretion. Hormone plays a role in calcium and phosphorus metabolism. So, because of this is also going to add to one, low levels of calcium, and then you have phosphorus thrown into the mix, which phosphorus is one you're not going to struggle to get from your diet, but still internally having that effect over time, it's not good. We do not want low phosphorus levels, especially because that is very rarely seen. But if it is, this is typically low magnesium because of this parathyroid hormone.
The scary part from that, when I hear that with PTH, with testosterone, like we've talked about, is that we know the endocrine system as a whole, the hormone system in our body, is so complex, not complicated, not systematic, complex in the sense of like a weather, where one thing will unpredictably change what happens somewhere else.
Yeah.
It's not just a plus B equals C scenario, where if it throws off just one hormone, that can unpredictably impact another, which unpredictably impacts another. And it's not as simple as just reversing it. So that's the scary part when you start to hear how important it is for PTH secretion,
Mhm.
for testosterone secretion, is because just like the vitamin D to calcium downstream effect, what's the downstream effect of all of this? And it's
Yeah.
unpredictable sometimes.
Yeah. And that low PTH is also going to cause low potassium and sodium levels. So that's another one. It affects so many pieces. Another one is how it can affect vitamin B6. Magnesium and vitamin B6, they work synergistically, they work together. And B6 increases the cellular uptake of magnesium. And magnesium acts as a cofactor for many enzymes involved in B6 metabolism. So this partnership is important for processes like neurotransmitter production and energy metabolism. Whenever we say because we say this a lot, something acts as a cofactor for enzymes. A cofactor, it literally just means it's required for these enzymes are going to activate a metabolic reaction. They're required for that reaction to take place. And some enzymes need these things called cofactors. A lot of the times they are vitamins and minerals. Without them, that reaction is either going to be slowed or it's not going to take place at all. So I just wanted to clarify that because I feel like we throw around that word a lot and some people might not know what it means.
That's a good point. We've said that like 10
Yeah.
times.
So cofactors are important and a lot of them are vitamins and minerals. That's a huge function of vitamins and minerals in the body, is to act as a cofactor. I think it's so easy because you're told all your life, make sure you get your vitamins. You need to eat your vitamins. You need your vitamins. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like, it's almost just thrown out there that it's like, yes, they're important. Hard stop. Like, we do not think about it this deeply. And it is so, this is like the nerd in me. And this is one of the reasons why I fell so in, because I mean, I studied nutritional biochemistry in grad school, which it's all vitamins, minerals, these reactions. Is I remember taking class and just being like, on the vitamins and their role in the body, like blew my absolute mind, is to just like without the
It sounds terrifying. Did it almost scare you a little
yes.
bit? Because it's like it's not it's the specifics of like, this is just one mineral
Mhm.
out of countless minerals and countless vitamins that are in your body that your bodies need. This is just one of
But
them,
yeah,
and all of these impacts it can have. So it's like most people, you're right, just leave it at it's important to get your
yeah,
vitamins and
and
minerals.
don't really
What? That doesn't just mean one thing. That means a million
yeah,
things. What do you mean just get it?
uh,
Okay, they're the crap out of
yeah,
me. This seems like freaking a god
yeah,
mineral
it
at this
is,
point. Like with its hand is in
and
everything.
that's why you see, which Tony was talking about, symptoms, but even just this ripple effect of how magnesium affects vitamin and mineral levels, hormone levels, and just all of these reactions is why low levels of magnesium is associated with an increased risk of heart disease, osteoporosis, metabolic syndrome, hypertension, type 2 diabetes. It is powerful, man. It is.
I thought this episode would give me more hope. It's kind of more scaring the crap
Yeah,
out of me.
it is.
I don't think I'm ever gonna miss taking a supplement or getting
No,
enough,
don't.
hydrated. Not a day in my life. Okay, but let's talk about how tough it is, because I didn't
Mhm.
realize this until we did the top vitamin and mineral deficiency episode, where I know potassium was one of the biggest ones and challenging. But again, potassium is very important in the body. It does a few very specific things, but it's not that god roll of, I don't want to keep calling it a god roll, but where it's got its hand in everything like
Yeah,
magnesium does.
yeah,
And until that episode, I guess I didn't really put two and two together with how tricky it is, where if you're not intentionally trying to get enough magnesium in your diet, you're probably not.
yeah, it is.
Is that fair to say?
It's yeah, there's a small few people where I would say they're good, but I'll get into that in a second. But yeah, for the majority of people, definitely more often than not, you're probably not getting enough. Are you deficient? So deficiency, you're not going to see that as often, but in insufficiency, you still see a lot of these symptoms. So it's very, very common because the recommended dietary allowance of magnesium for adults is 410 to 420 milligrams a day for men and 320 to 360 milligrams a day for women. And may not sound like a lot when you compare it to other things, but it's not. There are magnesium rich foods, but not even like there are not a lot of foods that are super, super high in it, which we'll get into in a second. But also, there is this aspect of there's a decline in magnesium content in our soil now, just like over time. Sometimes this can happen with vitamins and minerals. So it's not as high as it used to be. Also, processed foods typically don't have much magnesium at all. And the standard American diet, most diets are composed of processed foods. And then just throughout our lifestyle, as we have progressed, we need more magnesium. Stress, physical activity, chronic health conditions like diabetes, digestive disorders can increase your body's needs for magnesium as well. And magnesium rich foods are just, it's not as common in your diet, say a calcium.
Or even I'm like, if for vitamin C, you
Vitamin
have a
C.
clementine
Yeah.
and you got 100%
Yeah.
of your vitamin C for the day. There's not really a food that you can eat one of.
And get
It's like, oh, your magnesium's taken
yeah,
care of.
yeah, vitamin C, it's like you can have an orange and it's like you'll never see something that's 100% of your daily value of magnesium. Like, you
Yeah,
won't see that.
never, not even.
Before I go through a list, because there are foods that have magnesium in it, but it's also important to note that some or the majority of these magnesium-rich foods are going to be calorically dense. So, it's gonna be a high amount of calories for a smaller portion, and so that's just something to really keep in mind. And I'll go through that in a second, but just to be cognizant of, because you're not going to want to eat a ton of these because it's easy to rack up the calories. For example, nuts and seeds. So almonds have 80 milligrams of magnesium. That's 165 calories. And like 165 calories of almonds is almost like the palm of your hand. It's a very small amount. Cashews have around 80 milligrams, and those are 160 calories. Dark chocolate has 64 milligrams, and it's like 170 calories. Chia seeds, my favorite recommendation for magnesium is going to be seeds. Nuts are great, but you have to be conscious of your portion control with nuts. And also, you're still not going to get like near that 100% with keeping to the serving size. So, seeds are definitely a little bit better route because they are a higher magnesium content with a little bit less calories than nuts. And I just think they're easier. So, like chia seeds, you get 95 milligrams, it's 140 calories per serving, but like you could throw in a tablespoon or two of chia seeds, ground flax seeds, pumpkin seeds. For 1 ounce of pumpkin seeds, you get 168 milligrams of magnesium. Pumpkin seeds are going to be your gold tier right there. And you could also throw pumpkin seeds, like sprinkle them on things. And 1 ounce, I think, is like two tablespoons, which you're not going to be snacking on a bunch of pumpkin seeds, but that's a good, a good recommendation.
I do love a good salted pumpkin
Yeah,
seed.
they're
I forgot
good.
about
They're
that.
good. Avocados, they have 58 milligrams of magnesium, but that's for one avocado. A whole avocado depends on the size, but that can range up to like 350 calories.
Yeah,
Yeah.
how big are your avocados?
Yeah. Bananas have 32 milligrams of magnesium. Spinach is a great magnesium source as well. So I would say like seeds and greens, like dark leafy greens, are my recommendations for magnesium. What else? Oh, a cup of black beans has 120 milligrams. Legumes in general are going to be higher in magnesium. Some whole grains, not as much. Tofu, it's going to have a little bit. But you can see in this list, patterns are a lot of them are going to be nuts and seeds, leafy greens. Some of them are going to be a bit more calorically dense. So just keep an eye out for that. But none of them are going to be a single serving of something, or maybe even have two servings of something to get your recommended daily allowance of magnesium.
Yeah,
So you have to
intentional.
be intentional. It with planning, it is definitely possible to meet your magnesium needs through diet with the right nutrition habits. You have to be conscious of it. You have to plan it out. If you are, and it's a little bit stricter, right? Because it's a little bit harder to do. Some of these foods can also get expensive. Nuts are expensive. So here's some things you could do. Like if you really don't want to supplement at the end of the day, it is absolutely possible. Buy your nuts and seeds in bulk is my recommendation. Store them in the fridge. They're going to last longer. You only need a smaller serving. So that's going to save you money over time. You got to focus on eating a variety of whole foods, not just the same vegetable, the same fruit every day. Try to eat in color, try to get those different foods because that's going to help you eat just more vitamins and minerals in general. And then the majority of your diet is going to have to come from whole foods. It is. That's a recommendation we have in general, but this is more of a stricter sense because if you really don't want to have to supplement, okay, you got to be really making sure that all of your main meals, whole foods, high in fruits, vegetables, whole grains, fiber, all that stuff. There are a few hacks. Definitely, you still want to prioritize a magnesium in your diet, even if you're supplementing, which I'm going to recommend. Supplementing because it's going to just be easier. You're going to make sure you cover all of your bases. You don't have to be as strict, but you still want to prioritize still getting magnesium in your diet. Still going to be important. Add a tablespoon of chia seeds or flax seeds to your smoothie, to your oatmeal. Sprinkle them on literally anything. They don't taste like anything. Add some spinach to your smoothies. Aim to have a fruit or veggie at each meal. And then at the end of the day, get a high quality supplement that we're going to recommend in a bit to make sure you're covering all your bases. That is my recommendation at the end of the day.
This is really making me realize I should probably start eating spinach again. I just hate it so much. Because it is ridiculous. Like for almonds, if you Google, if you look up, if you ask anybody some of the most magnesium rich foods, almonds are
At the
usually at the
top,
top of that
which,
list.
yeah,
I would need to over 800 calories of almonds to get my daily amount of magnesium. And that's where we talk about this all a lot because we don't push a lot of
no.
supplements. And why we rank a supplement more important than others isn't because of how important of a role necessarily it plays in the body. That's definitely a piece of it, but also just with the gap that it fills in most people's lives. Like vitamin C, nearly every single person is getting enough vitamin C. It's in processed foods, it's in whole foods, it's put into everything. You could have a bowl of Trick cereal and get most of your daily vitamin
Mm-hmm.
C. It's not hard to get. So supplementing with vitamin C doesn't really make sense for a lot of people. It's not that vitamin C is not important. It's just that most people without thought can get enough of it. Magnesium is up there with vitamin D where most people do not get enough. And you can almost guarantee if it's just by accident, you're not hitting it.
Yeah.
If you're not intentional about it, you're not going to accidentally stumble and get 400 or 500 milligrams of magnesium a day. And that's why we talk about how important it is. So when we talk about this, I think the biggest key and what we talk about with any supplemental form or just with food is what you mentioned at the very beginning of the episode. Go to Chronometer, one of our favorite micronutrient tracking food trackers. It's usually free too. I don't know if they've upped their price recently, but it's free. At least it was. Track your food for a week or two, and it will tell you how much magnesium, how much of all these vitamins and minerals you're getting. And if you're getting, this is the cool part, if you're getting enough, if you're getting that 300 to 400 male versus female, whatever you are, you don't need to do anything. If you're consistently getting enough, great. You don't need to supplement with it. But it'll show you how much you're getting so you can realize how big of a gap you need to fill. Some might be getting it really close where they just need 50, 60 more milligrams. That's easy to hit through food.
Yeah.
Throw a handful of almonds in there and you got it. But if you're 200, 300, 350 milligrams short, like we just talked about, that's going to be tricky to just make some small dietary changes. Those are going to have to be like a diet rehaul in a lot of cases. And that's all supplements are really there to do, is fill in gaps that exist from your current diet. And even when you were saying that, this is the thing that I think is such a cool and important lesson, and something that I probably shifted my opinion on a couple of years ago in learning a lot about this, is so many people demonize like highly processed foods for what they're doing to your body. But the more and more we talk and we learn about things like this, is realizing it's not necessarily what the processed foods are doing to your body. It's what your body is now not getting from whole foods that it's replacing.
Yep.
People think that it's some kind of kryptonite, like eating a Twinkie is kryptonite. It's like,
No.
if you're getting your daily amount of vitamins, of minerals, of electrolytes, of macronutrients that your body needs, a Twinkie on top's not going to be bad for your health at all. It's when so much of your diet is being displaced with processed foods, taking away from the things that contain this, like we just talked about, it's not easy to hit by accident.
No,
It blows my mind, because I think it would shift so many people's mentality towards food and what they see as good or bad foods, is realizing the bad foods aren't bad because what they are, they're bad because what they're
yeah,
not.
no, my mantra for any sort of like diet and health, nutrition related advice is going to always be that it is not the processed food that is causing any sort of health related disease. It is the overconsumption of processed food combined, it has to be combined with the underconsumption of whole foods, health promoting foods, foods high in fiber, high protein foods, fruits and vegetables. It is that combination. You are missing out on all of the foods that play a direct role in your health. You are missing out on all these essential vitamins and minerals and nutrients that play a direct role in your health. The processed foods, it is just, you just are eating too many of them and not having any of these health promoting foods, like for the most part. That is what the standard American diet is. It is the lack of health promoting foods that is so dangerous, and this overconsumption piece.
And that's why adding in is always a better approach than taking away, because so many people will focus on taking away these processed foods, or maybe their snack foods that they really, really enjoy, but they don't focus on the important part of, what am I going to replace that with that's going to get me what I'm missing from it? They just focus on taking it away, and they might replace it with just a different processed option, or this or that, instead of focusing on just adding in the things intentionally to get more magnesium, to get more of this vitamin and that mineral. And then naturally those things work their way out. That's another reason why adding in is always a better approach diet wise than just taking away or restricting or doing anything like that. Now, when it comes to the point where, if you're like most people who would really see a benefit from taking a supplement, and you go online or you go to the grocery store, you start to realize that there is a lot of different forms of magnesium out there. There's magnesium oxide, citrate. There's almost every supplement's going to say there's a different form of magnesium. There's about 15, 14 different forms of magnesium supplementation on the market. And some of them do very different things. So I want to run through them real quick, just so you can know what to look for, what form of magnesium is going to treat what you're trying to treat with it. Now, the different types are going to look like this. The first and most common form that you're going to see in supplements is magnesium oxide. What you'd probably find in the magnesium supplement you go buy at the grocery store, at Ralph's, at King Soopers, at whatever your Publix. Oh, RIP. Do you guys have Publix
No,
in Boston?
no, I hear people love it.
It's a pub subs so bad. Just the subs. I really didn't like any other part of Publix but the pub
Oh,
subs when I lived in Atlanta. RIP. But that's probably the form that you're going to find most often at the grocery store. And it's used in most supplements because, this should not come to a shocker of you, It's the cheapest form available, magnesium oxide. And unfortunately, it's one that I would just avoid because there's a word you've probably heard a lot of people on the internet throw around called bioavailability. Most people, like Gary Brecka or you, whatever internet troll you want to think of, misuse that word as many times as it comes out of their
Mm-hmm.
mouth. Right? This is so bioavailable. This is bio. That's not bio. They don't really know what they're talking about. So it's misused very often. But something being bioavailable, this just refers to how much of a nutrient that you take actually ends up being absorbed and utilized by your body compared to how much gets passed, peed out, not used by your body. So just in this example, if you take 100 milligrams of a nutrient and 90% of it is actually used in your body, we'd say that is a very bioavailable nutrient. Magnesium oxide has been tested and shown to have a bioavailability as low as 4%. 4%. Meaning if you take 100 milligrams of magnesium oxide, as low as 4 milligrams is able to be used by your body. Now, we just talked, your daily goal is probably somewhere around 400 milligrams, about 100 times as much. You would need to ultra dose oxide to even come close. And then it would honestly, that would probably just ruin your digestion. That would be
Yeah.
another problem to
Yeah.
solve.
Don't do that.
So magnesium oxide, just avoid it. Like just avoid it. It's going to be in most common supplements, but if you don't know, check on the back of your magnesium supplement if you got one in the cabinet. If it says oxide, honestly, you're good to throw it away, but it's not like it's going to be that much of a waste of money because it shouldn't have cost more than $10 in the first place. The next form that you're going to look for is magnesium citrate, which is most commonly used to treat digestion issues. If you're backed up, those kind of digestive issues, if you're constipated, because it works really well as a laxative. Anyone who's taken too much of this or 2 servings of this will tell you that because they spend the rest of the day on the toilet. So magnesium citrate, I wouldn't usually recommend unless you're having constipation or digestive issues like that. Not like bloating, not like this, like specifically if you're just backed up.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you'd want to use magnesium citrate. If you've ever heard of magnesium sulfate, that's another form. That's just Epsom salt. Have you ever taken an Epsom salt
Yeah.
bath? Like what people use?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's usually either done in Epsom salt baths or applied topically because it can be absorbed through the skin. It can improve skin health, circulation. It also helps with muscle soreness and relaxation. So it's nice topically, but it's not going to do much to actually raise your internal magnesium levels. Magnesium L-threonate is one of the newer forms produced, and it's known mostly for its ability to cross the blood-brain barrier more effectively than other forms. I think Huberman is the first one to really make that form popular. And it hasn't actually shown this in testing, but is thought to potentially benefit more things like cognitive function better than other form. But I just want to be clear that hasn't really been tested or shown at all to be there. It's more of a theory. Now, other forms like magnesium glycinate, biglycinate, chloride, taurate, malate, those all have solid bioavailability, making them good options for daily use. And then the newest form that has been produced, I think, in the last 2 years is something called sucrosomial magnesium, which is just magnesium that's been encased in sucresters or sucrose esters of fatty acid that increase the bioavailability of the magnesium to a higher level in previously available supplements, where it's not like it's a night and day difference. It's not going from 4% like oxide to 150% something crazy, but it has been shown to have over a 20% higher bioavailability compared to the next most bioavailable forms of magnesium, which are citrate in clinical testing. And that's also the form that Legion uses, why we've taken it since they came out with it, just because it gives you more bang for your buck. It's also cheap. It's like $25, I
Mm-hmm.
think, at Legion, and you get 2 months worth of servings for it. 2 months of 150 milligram servings. It's crazy. So those are all the different forms you want to look for. I would say sucrosomial is the one I'd recommend, but if you also already have some back at home, it's glycinate, biglycinate, chloride, taurate, or malate. Don't throw them away. Don't get rid of them. Like those are still good daily forms you can keep taking. Those are all the different options you want to look for. Why is that so confusing? Why are there so many different forms of like that one?
It's goes to how many functions magnesium has in the body. It is one of those reasons. It's because it's found in so many different forms, and that's also why it's found in so many different locations in the body, which is why it's hard to test with it on your like in a blood test.
That's brutal. At the end of the day, magnesium or vitamin D? Would you rather? If you had to kill one, marry one,
I
what's it
would,
going to be?
oh my God, if I had to kill one, magnesium, just because I do think vitamin D is going to be
It is a lot harder
harder
to get
to
enough
get.
of vitamin D, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could move around. I could just nut up and get some spinach in my diet. But vitamin D is freaking tough because it's like the sun.
Yeah.
That's where you get it. You got to go out. That's just a tough thing to prioritize in a lot of people's
Oh,
lives.
I
But
have a note
you're right.
too. Your stupid electrolyte supplement that is marketing that it has magnesium in it is definitely does not have much magnesium at all. Tony and I have not found an electrolyte supplement that has high levels of magnesium that make it worth supplementing with that electrolyte supplement. So,
Yeah. I think what's the element is one of the biggest ones that promotes that they use magnesium. It's like, oh no, we got plenty of magnesium. And I think it's 40
yeah,
milligrams,
yeah.
like a tenth of what you might need
So
in a day.
don't
40,
rely on your electrolyte
if
supplement
that.
for that, for magnesium.
Yeah. Well, and that's why it's important. Like, it's not challenging to learn how to read nutrition labels. Like, just because someone's marketing like has magnesium, you should, if you've been listening to us for this long, you should know that the supplement industry is pretty shady and will say a lot of things to get you to buy their supplement. Just take the extra 2 seconds to flip it over, read the label, see what form it is, see if they actually have a lot. If they're screaming magnesium and they only have 40 milligrams, 20 milligrams, that's just a lie. Like, it's like technically not a lie, but it's super
Yeah.
misleading. That's a good add-on
Mhm.
because not a lot of, I think that the one with the most magnesium is Body Armor I've found. I think Gator Light has a pretty decent
Yeah.
amount, but most of them are not. That's what cracks. Like, most electrolyte supplements are literally just salt. Like, they're not,
Well,
there's
yeah.
7 main electrolytes. Most electrolyte supplements carry 1, 2, maybe 3 of those electrolytes max. And the biggest piece is
Mhm.
salt that they carry.
That's
I
wild.
just call it a salt supplement, not an electrolyte supplement. Rant over. But hopefully we didn't scare you too much, ladies and gentlemen. I know this one scared the crap out of me, and I'm not missing a day of my supplement again. And I'm going to go, I'll update you next week if I'm actually able to stick to the spinach,
I believe
the
in
cup
you.
of spinach a day. I'll be Popeyes. Pop it out. Oh, it just makes me gag. We'll make it. Winter arc is coming. We got to be tough. All right. Everybody in premium. We'll talk to you this Friday for a fresh new AMA with that bonus episode. We'll give away another free Legion supplement. We could be giving away free magnesium this week. That'd be even perfectly on brand. Everybody else, we'll catch you off next Monday for another fresh episode.
Bye.